Who's buying what product, right? That's the main thing. And there's a relationship between those two that creates the message, which will be the thing that compels that person to buy this product. So what does the product look like, smell like, function like? What's the intended purpose of the product? Because if you look at, like, some things are developed to do something else, but it turns out they end up being something else. I haven't got a great example of that right now, but I do know that, sometimes an intended, I think medicines have something to do with that. Like, you intend them to be something and they end up with something else. And the actual purpose. Other things, like, what's the price package? What's the price package? What are the alternative tiers available? Like, just build up this full picture of what's available. And the product that I specialize in is, digital education, which has multiple arms and multiple different avenues of education that you can go down. So I like to understand the full picture, in not necessarily in super detail, but I will go through the detail and figure out, I want to find out a relationship between all of those products or all of those avenues, and then I can summarize it into one line. I just want to get really understand what everything is going on. So figure it all out. What are you selling? Like, what is the value of it? And particularly what I'm an affiliate of, it has a lead magnet. So I'm more focused, if I really want to get down to it, is to focus on the lead magnet, because that's the one thing I'm selling, because it has a very smooth sales system in the back end for me, so I don't have to worry about that. But when I have worked with clients, we work in it on a step-by-step sort of thing, and we break down the product in a sort of value chain of what's cheapest first to what's most expensive, and work through those different dimensions. But they should usually be a relationship between them. They can't just be random sort of things, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, so here's some just product ideas that we can sort of like think about in terms of what are the edges of these. I've got perfume. Like, that's an interesting one in its dynamic, because it comes in a bottle and is a liquid, but it's actually the fragrance of the perfume that is the product, right? It's not actually the liquid, it's the fragrance of the perfume. So then you're defining smell rather than, but at the same time, the way the perfume looks is pretty significant to the sales. We just know that, otherwise perfume bottles wouldn't be in fancy looking bottles. So there's those dimensions to, like, a perfume that make it not super easy to define the parameters of it. I've also got a table that is very easy to define the parameters of it. We know what a table is, but what kind of table is it? There's lots of different types of table. A lecture like this. What are the parameters of my lecture? What are they? Is it what I'm saying, or is it the Zoom screen, or is it the recording? Where does it exist, and what are the labels to it? Like, what is it? And this is the stage as well of description, not analysis. This is really important to understand the distinction of these. Description is almost like, well, it's just defining, it's a definition. And as soon as you start to draw value on the definition, like, as in, like, so let's just say if we're defining my lecture, for instance, is a lecture that teaches you how to understand. It's like the understand. If I'm starting to talk about how you will start to understand, that's analysis right there. It's like perfume. If I say now here's the defining thing. It's a liquid that makes you smell better. That's an analysis of what the function of the liquid is. But it's a liquid that smells, is a description and a definition. Yeah, liquid in a bottle. But what actually defines it as perfume is that it has a fragrance, a fragranted liquid that is confined to a bottle. Like, that's how we really understand what it is. So just to sort of clarify, I had a comment in the Zoom chat that was liquid in a bottle. But to get much deep, the full description would have a reference to the smell, but not the function, not what the smell does for the user, right? The description of it is how we define the parameters. So all of the things that it does, I've got A webinar as well. I know a lot of people will be promoting lead magnets, webinars, workshops. What are the defining characteristics? And this is really interesting as well, because there's two dimensions, especially to digital education. There's the what it looks like, as we said about this lecture. It looks like XYZ. It's a man presenting a thing that is in this particular industry, niche, demographic, market, whatever, and it's a training material, it's educational, you know, that sort of thing. There's a little bit of analysis there, you know, the lines kind of blur. And then you've also got well, there's that sort of shows the two dimensions there. There's the what is the content being delivered versus what it actually is. It's a page with a video on it with green edges, you know, so there's two dimensions. But just like the perfume as well, I think those two dimensions are actually relevant to each other. You just have to define all of them, all of the relevant dimensions, and then you can, without the analysis, to just give you this real tangible image. And I'm wondering now as well, this is something to really consider. How many of you are seeing, as I'm talking, a bottle of perfume, a webinar? You're like maybe experiencing it from a sort of psychological perspective. Like maybe it's me, but I'm seeing a webinar or like a person delivering some sort of training, or I'm seeing lots of different perfume bottles as I'm talking about it. And I don't see this enough in people's ads. I don't see it enough. It's too much fluff that doesn't give a real tangible picture or feeling or sensory vibe. But I think the edges or the parameters of a product is what helps us really make it real in our minds. And someone needs to feel the reality of that product in order to feel it an investment or to be able to see themselves using it. They need to be able to really conceptualize what it is, which is what I'm experiencing right now as I'm talking about it. I'm experiencing the conceptions of a perfume, of a table, all these things that just the labels of them describing. And if you're in a competitive market, let's say everyone's promoting a webinar becomes cliche, so you lose the image of it. You lose, if you say it too many times, you stop getting that image of it, which is why you have to be very specific about the definitions, because you just want them to see it in their minds. And then, right, they can experience the benefits. And that's what I think a description does a lot, because people can create the benefits from a description, but it's hard to create a description from the benefits. So I really, really think it's better to start this way around, describing the product. Golf shoe, computer mouse, lampshade, living room sketch, right? What would someone who sketches up an interior design of your living room, right? What that product? What is that? Toothpaste, bag of compost. I've got sunglasses and AirPods. These are all products essentially, and they all have these different dimensions to them. And I think that's really important to take that into consideration as well. Each of these, we can see how dimensions of a product, not like as in like 50 centimeters, 30 centimeters, 20 centimeters. I mean like the planes that they sort of inhabit. Like, so for instance, we talked about the perfume. It's got the dimension of smell and the dimension of looking and the dimension of feeling, versus a webinar, which has the dimension of us absorbing information over, it's got the dimension of time as well, and also what it looks like. And these are the things that differentiate things from each other, these different dimensions. So creating this full picture of where a product lies in what realm is really what helps define it from other things. And so if you want to stand out in a saturated crowd, giving it edges across really defining it in all these planes is going to help create this real three-dimensional experience for someone. That's super important. Everyone talks about cutting through the noise and blah, 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 and powerful copy. And I'm like, just fucking say it like it is across in as much detail as possible, and you'll see a real significant impact on that. But then how do you do that with relevance? Okay, so that's something I'm going to tackle on this call as well. So description of the product, that's the research phase of you. Just understand as much about it across multiple different planes as you possibly can. And write, or I don't know, however you learn. I write things down, never review my notes, although I always intend to. Good intentions to review my notes, never do. Okay, so then obviously the avatar as well, and try and understand them on multiple dimensions as well, like who they are, what they look like, and, you know, what they do on their daily basis. But what I will say is just go to the well. Like if you're part of a community promoting an affiliate product, for example, and there's a Facebook group full of 1,000 people, just look who they are. Look in your community. Look at the people that are already buying the product, and kind of just summarize them. Who are they? What are they doing? Like what ties them together? And then once you've got these two things, you've got the message, you've got the product in a big picture, and you've got the person in a big picture, and maybe you've got a bit about market research. You're just building up this picture, right? Don't worry too much about how much you've got. Just keep going until you're like, I know a fair amount. Because bear in mind, you only need to select a small amount of that. And if you just research a lot and just learn a lot about it, you're already in a much better position than a lot of other people.